My name is Rachel Thompson, I'm 42, and this is the story of how my sister finally learned the hardest, and most valuable, lesson of her life. Have you ever been judged by your own family for the choices you made? If yes, this story will feel familiar. For 15 long years, my sister never missed a chance to remind people that I had thrown away my MBA by marrying a farmer. But at my daughter's wedding, in front of 200 guests, the truth finally came out, and it shut her up for good. Before we go on, please take a second to like and subscribe only if you truly enjoy stories like this. And I'd love to know, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Everything began 3 months before my daughter Emma's wedding. My husband David and I were in our kitchen, double-checking the guest list, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my sister Victoria. "Can't wait for the big day," she wrote. "I've got a special surprise planned for Emma." My stomach dropped. Victoria's surprises were rarely pleasant. The morning of Emma's wedding arrived with perfect Oregon sunshine spilling through the oak trees that surrounded Willow Creek Vineyard, our venue. The rolling hills, the endless rows of grapevines stretching toward Mount Hood, it was breathtaking. Rows of white chairs lined the aisle, each marked with lavender bouquets. Everything was exactly as Emma had dreamed. David squeezed my hand during our final walkthrough. "Stop worrying about Victoria," he said, reading my thoughts like he always did. "This day belongs to Emma." But at 2 p.m., an hour before the ceremony, a sleek Tesla rolled up the gravel driveway. Out stepped Victoria, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage. Her husband, Robert, followed behind, clearly uncomfortable in his tailored suit. "Rachel," she greeted, air-kissing me with her overpowering perfume. "Oh, how rustic." Her eyes swept over the barn where the reception would be held. "Charming, in a country sort of way." "Very authentic, very you." I smiled tightly. "Emma loves it here." "Of course she does, sweetheart. She's always had simple tastes." Her gaze moved to my navy blue dress, elegant, modest, and bought on sale at Nordstrom Rack. "Is that what you're wearing?" she asked, before turning away without waiting for an answer. "I need to speak with whoever's in charge of the speeches," she announced to the wedding coordinator. "I prepared something special for my niece." The coordinator looked at me, unsure. I forced a nod, even as my chest tightened. Victoria reached into her purse and produced a thick cream envelope. "This is part 1 of my gift," she said with a mysterious smile. "Part 2 will come during my toast." I didn't know then that her gift would turn the entire day upside down. As guests began arriving, Victoria stationed herself at the entrance like an unofficial greeter, ensuring everyone noticed her. "Yes, I just flew in from San Francisco," I overheard her telling Emma's college friend. "Had to postpone a board meeting, but you know, family comes first." To our neighbors, the Johnsons, she chirped, "Oh, you know Rachel from the farmer's market? How quaint." I keep telling her she could do so much more with that MBA, but some people just prefer the simple life. David's jaw tensed as he adjusted his tie, the one Emma had given him that said father of the bride in small gold letters. His hands, still marked with traces of soil despite scrubbing, trembled slightly. "Let it go," I whispered. "She's doing it again," he muttered. "Turning it all into her show." Moments later, the MC, a young man named Tyler, approached looking uneasy. "Mrs. Thompson, your sister insists on giving a special toast. She says you approved it." I hadn't. But before I could respond, Victoria was already beside me. "Of course it's approved," she said sweetly. "I'm the bride's only aunt. I've written something inspirational for Emma." She handed Tyler a note card. "Please introduce me properly, Victoria Mitchell, Senior Marketing Director at Technova Industries." Tyler glanced at me nervously. The ceremony was 20 minutes away, guests were seated, and my parents, my father still recovering from hip surgery, were being helped to their chairs. It wasn't the right time for a scene. "Fine," I said quietly. "But make it short," Victoria. She patted my shoulder with mock sympathy. Don't worry, sister. I know exactly what to say. That word, exactly, made my stomach turn. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Emma glowed walking down the aisle, her white dress catching the afternoon light. Her groom, Marcus, teared up when she reached him. Even Victoria dabbed her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. But the peace didn't last. As guests began enjoying the farm-to-table dinner, Tyler took the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, before the best man and maid of honor, the bride's aunt would like to share a few words. Please welcome Victoria Mitchell, Senior Marketing Director at Technova Industries. Victoria rose, smoothing her dress. The spotlight found her instantly. She smiled, diamond earrings glinting. Thank you, Tyler, she began. Watching Emma today reminds me of watching her mother walk down the aisle 20 years ago. A few polite smiles. It seemed harmless at first. Rachel was so young then, she continued, so full of promise. Fresh out of Northwestern with her MBA, the world at her feet. We all had such high hopes for her. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. David's hand found mine under the table. And in that moment, I knew, here we go again, your circumstances? As if our life were something to rise above. I thought about the MBA diploma tucked away in my home office drawer, the one I never displayed because Victoria had made me feel ashamed of what I'd chosen to do with it. The job offers I'd turned down to build something lasting with David. The sustainable farming panels where I lectured about financial literacy for small agricultural businesses, never telling my family because Victoria would have turned them into jokes. For 20 years, I'd chosen dignity instead of confrontation. But dignity without limits was just polite surrender dressed as grace. Emma's best friend was recording everything. These words would live forever online unless I stopped it, but how could I intervene without becoming the villain? David gave my hand 3 quick squeezes, our silent code for trust me. Tyler was now standing near Victoria, nervously tugging at her sleeve. Ms. Mitchell, I'm sorry, but we should pause, he said carefully. Victoria waved him off. This is important. She smiled toward Emma. Sweetheart, your mother chose love over ambition. That's adorable. But you don't have to repeat her mistake. The word sacrifice hit like a slap. Tyler reached for the microphone, but Victoria yanked it back with a brittle laugh. Just another moment, young man. This is family business. Her smile turned razor sharp. Now, where was I? Oh yes, Emma's future. She lifted a cream-colored envelope. Inside is a check, and more importantly, a letter of introduction to my CEO. Because unlike some people, her gaze cut directly toward me. I believe in opening doors, not closing them. The jab wasn't subtle. You see, she went on, syrupy and cruel, not everyone needs to peak at 22 with an MBA they never learned to use. Emma, darling, you're young. You don't have to copy your mother's choices. You don't have to settle for, she gestured toward the barn and vineyard behind us. This life. Someone at Marcus's table gasped. Phones rose discreetly. It's admirable, I suppose, Victoria continued, tone implying the opposite. Rachel found herself a simple man with simple dreams and decided that was enough. But Emma, you were raised to want more, even if your environment didn't exactly nurture that. David's brother started to rise, but his wife gripped his arm. When I look at David, Victoria continued, fully in performance mode, I see a hard-working, honest man, salt of the earth, as they say. The kind of man who keeps this country fed. Essential work, truly. Someone has to do it. The sweetness in her tone sliced like glass. But Emma, you have choices. Real choices. You don't need to limit yourself to farm stands and local markets. You could live in a real city, work in a real office, earn real money. Emma's face turned pale, Marcus clasped her trembling hand. So, here's my gift. Victoria began to open the envelope. Tyler's voice cut through sharply. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we have a special announcement." The entire tent erupted in uneasy murmurs. 200 guests suddenly found their plates, their phones, or the ceiling intensely fascinating. At the Northwestern alumni table, my old classmates exchanged awkward looks. Dr. Patricia Chen, now CFO of a Fortune 500 company, slowly shook her head. She'd offered me jobs 3 times over the years. Maybe now she finally understood why I'd turned them all down. "Is she drunk?" someone whispered. "This is beyond inappropriate," another voice hissed. My cousin Linda was already typing furiously, no doubt updating the family group chat that Victoria had left years ago, declaring she was too busy for constant chatter. But Victoria didn't notice, or maybe she thrived on the discomfort. "Don't look so scandalized," she said, smiling tightly. "Sometimes the truth has to be spoken, even during celebrations. Especially during celebrations. How else will Emma realize she can escape this?" "That's enough." David's father, William, rose to his feet. At 75, his voice still commanded authority. "Young lady, you're disrespecting my family." Victoria laughed softly. "Your family? With all due respect, Mr. Thompson, your family is precisely what I'm trying to save Emma from. 3 generations of the same story. No progress. No ambition." Emma's tears began to fall, streaking her makeup. Marcus whispered to her, but she only shook her head, frozen. My mother stood unsteadily. "Victoria, please." "This isn't the time, Mom," Victoria snapped. "You've excused this mediocrity for years. Always defending Rachel's choices, pretending it's noble to waste potential." The photographer had stopped shooting. The videographer had lowered his camera. Even the catering team stood motionless near the doorway. Tyler's voice was pleading now. "Mr. Harrison, Mr. Harrison is here." But Victoria ignored him, raising her voice for her grand finale. "So, Emma, before you open my gift, promise me, promise us all, that you won't settle for one of the most successful agricultural enterprises in the entire Pacific Northwest," a commanding voice interrupted from the entrance. "If you've ever stood frozen while someone you love humiliates you in public, you know the ache of wishing the earth would open up and swallow you whole. But sometimes, life doesn't let you hide, sometimes, it delivers the justice itself. Tell me, have you ever witnessed a moment when truth silenced a bully? Share your story below. And if this one hit home, tap that like button and subscribe. It helps others find stories that remind them they're not alone. Now, here's what happened next, because this is where everything truly changed. 15 minutes before Victoria's speech, I'd noticed Tyler anxiously checking his iPad, whispering to the catering manager. "The Ritz-Carlton group is running late," I heard him mutter. Apparently, Mr. Harrison's flight had been delayed. I hadn't paid it much attention. After all, we had plenty of vendors attending, the florist, the photographer's assistant, even the vineyard's wine supplier. David usually handled those connections while I managed the books. But now Tyler was nearly bouncing in place, waving frantically toward the entrance. "Mr. Harrison." Perfect timing. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. James Harrison, Vice President of Procurement for the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Group." Victoria froze mid-gesture, the envelope still unopened. "The Ritz-Carlton," she repeated into the microphone, before realizing she was still amplified. "What does that have to do with—" A distinguished man in his 60s entered, flanked by 2 younger executives. Even in travel-wrinkled suits, they carried an effortless authority. "My apologies for the delay, Mr. Harrison," said smoothly, his tone courteous but his gaze landing on Victoria with cool disapproval. "We couldn't miss celebrating with the Thompson family. Partners like them are rare." "Partners?" Victoria echoed. David rose and shook Mr. Harrison's hand warmly. It was instantly clear they knew each other well. "I'm sorry, did you say partners?" Victoria asked, her smile flickering. Tyler jumped back to his microphone, relief visible on his face. "Yes," he said eagerly. "I've been trying to announce that Thompson Organic Farms has just signed an exclusive contract with the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Group." The room went silent. My cousin Linda's phone clattered to the floor. Victoria's prized envelope slipped from her fingers, forgotten. And David, quiet, steady David, lifted his wine glass, soil-stained hands and all, and smiled. I realized I'd missed the signs all week. Too distracted by Victoria's brewing drama, I hadn't noticed David's quiet confidence. The way he'd smirked when her RSVP arrived. "Let her come," he'd said simply. The secret phone calls from the barn always ending with, "Yes, the 15th works perfectly." The brand new suit he'd bought, not rented, for the wedding. "Emma deserves the best," he'd told me, but there'd been something else in his eyes. Even this morning, when I'd fretted over Victoria's potential outburst, he'd held me close and whispered, "Sometimes the best revenge is success." They can't ignore that. Now, as Mr. Harrison clasped his hand again, I saw my husband differently. He wasn't the fumbling farmer Victoria painted him to be, he was a strategist, a businessman who'd quietly built an empire while she was busy mocking him. His phone buzzed on the table. He turned it toward me. A message from his lawyer, contract fully executed. Congratulations on the $2.5 million annual deal. Press release Monday. $2.5 million a year. I looked at Victoria, still gripping the microphone like a lifeline. Her company, despite all her bragging, had never closed a deal that size. I knew because she'd have told the world if she had. "Should we tell them?" David whispered. "Tell them what?" I asked. He smiled, that rare, full smile I'd fallen for 22 years ago. "Everything." Mr. Harrison stepped to the microphone. "May I?" he asked politely. Victoria, pale and rattled, stepped aside. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Harrison began, "I'm here to celebrate not only Emma's wedding but a partnership that embodies what we value most at Ritz-Carlton: authenticity, quality, and true excellence." Victoria sank into her chair, but before he could continue, she shot back up, desperate to reclaim control. "This is lovely," she said sharply, snatching Tyler's microphone, "but I was in the middle of giving my niece some important life advice. Emma doesn't need to hear about vegetables on her wedding day." "Vegetables?" Mr. Harrison raised an eyebrow. "Madam, Thompson Organic Farms provides exclusive heritage produce to 17 of our properties. Their heirloom tomatoes alone feature in our Michelin-starred restaurants." Victoria gave a hollow laugh. "That's cute. But Emma has real potential. She shouldn't waste her life playing in dirt like her father." David's voice cut through the air like thunder. "The dirt you despise, Victoria," he said evenly, "has made us millions." You could have heard a pin drop. "The farm you refuse to visit employs 43 people year-round," he continued, standing tall. "The life you think Emma should escape? It paid for her college, debt-free, and this entire wedding, without touching her trust fund." "Trust fund?" Victoria's face drained of color. "What trust fund?" "The one I set up when she was 5, David replied calmly. "Right after our first major contract, back when you were still an intern, telling everyone I'd never amount to anything." The silence was electric. Even the vineyard fountain outside seemed to hold its breath. "But please," David added, voice cool and steady, "keep telling our daughter she should be ashamed of her roots. Tell her to be like you, leveraged to the hilt, 3 mortgages on a penthouse, leasing cars you can't afford, all to maintain an image." "How dare you?" "Your husband told me," David said simply. "Robert asked for financial advice last month," he continued, eyes level. "Seems your company isn't doing as well as Instagram suggests." Victoria's hands trembled. The envelope, her grand gesture, lay on the floor. Then Emma rose. "Aunt Victoria, please stop," she said softly. The barn fell into breathless silence. 200 guests sat frozen, watching a family unravel. Victoria stood rigid, her flawless designer dress now looking like armor cracking apart. For once, she had no words. Marcus's mother, the federal judge, placed her napkin down with deliberate precision. The gesture felt like a gavel strike. Robert, head in his hands, didn't look up. Their children stared into their phones, wishing to vanish. My father rose slowly, leaning on his cane. Victoria, he said quietly, disappointment heavy in his tone, your mother and I raised you better than this. Dad, I was just trying to what? He interrupted. Humiliate your sister? Shame your niece? Ruin her wedding? What happened to you, sweetheart? Emma moved then, my quiet, people-pleasing daughter. She walked up to Victoria and gently took the microphone. Aunt Victoria, she said, her voice clear now, I'm not ashamed of where I come from. I'm joining the family business because I want to, not because I have to. I have a trust fund big enough for any life I want, but I choose this one. She turned to the crowd. I choose to work with my hands. I choose to feed people. I choose to build something real, not just a LinkedIn profile. Applause rippled through the room. Emma lifted her hand for quiet. Wait, she said. There's one more thing everyone should know. Tyler rushed forward, clutching his iPad. Miss Thompson, should I? Emma nodded. Go ahead, Tyler. He cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, I have one more announcement about Thompson Organic Farms. His voice rang through the barn. It's my honor to announce that this wedding's entire organic menu, every vegetable, every herb, every edible flower, was provided by Thompson Organic Farms, the exclusive agricultural partner for the Ritz-Carlton's Pacific Northwest properties. A murmur spread through the crowd. The heirloom tomatoes in your salad, he continued. They're served in 3 Michelin-star restaurants. The microgreens, flown weekly to San Francisco, Seattle, and Vancouver. The heritage carrots you just enjoyed? There's a 6-month wait list for them. Mr. Harrison stepped forward again, taking the microphone smoothly. If I may add, he said, smiling toward David, Thompson Organic Farms isn't just a supplier, they're innovators. David Thompson's sustainable methods are being studied at universities across the country. His soil restoration program has won 3 environmental awards. And Rachel Thompson's financial model for small farms? It's now taught at Northwestern's business school. Northwestern. My alma mater. The one Victoria said I'd wasted. In fact, Mr. Harrison continued, eyes locking on Victoria, we just signed a $2.5 million annual contract with Thompson Farms, our largest agricultural partnership in company history. We don't work with simple farmers, Ms. Mitchell. We partner with visionaries. The applause was thunderous. Marcus's family stood. Patricia Chen raised her glass to me and mouthed, now I understand. Even the catering staff joined in. But the final blow came from table 12. Actually, a woman said, standing, I should introduce myself. Jennifer Walsh, Forbes. I'm here as Marcus's family friend, but I've also been trying to reach the Thompsons for months. We're doing a feature on agricultural innovation. Your story is exactly what we're looking for. Forbes. The publication Victoria had been chasing for 5 years. Her knees buckled, she collapsed into her chair, the once important envelope now meaningless. The contract value is public, Mr. Harrison added gently. Thompson Farms earned every penny, through integrity, not cocktail parties or PowerPoint slides. The jab was subtle, but devastating. Emma picked up the fallen envelope and handed it to her aunt. Thank you for the gift, Aunt Victoria, she said kindly. But I already have everything I need. Victoria's face flickered between humiliation, disbelief, and nausea. Her perfect mask shattered. I didn't know, she stammered, but there was nothing left to say. Robert stood quietly. We should go, he murmured. No, it was David's mother, Margaret Thompson, 80 years old, steady as stone. Victoria needs to hear this. She rose, supported by her son. I've watched you belittle this family for 15 years, she said. You called my grandson backward for joining 4-H. You told my granddaughter she'd never matter if she stayed in Oregon. You act as though city money is cleaner than money earned from soil. Her voice strengthened. My husband built this farm with his hands during the Depression. My son modernized it without losing its heart. And Rachel, the woman you mocked, turned it into an empire. What have you built, Victoria? Besides debt and delusion? The words landed like arrows. Then Judge Harrison rose. If I may, she said, her voice carrying the quiet authority of a courtroom. I once doubted this family too. But authenticity can't be faked or bought. The Thompsons have it. You, Ms. Mitchell, do not. Even the catering staff applauded. Victoria clutched her purse, trembling. Her teenagers were already by the exit, mortified. But as she turned to leave, Emma's voice stopped her. Aunt Victoria, she said softly, holding up the envelope. Your check, I can't take it. It comes with too many strings. And I don't need your money. I never did. The rejection was final. Victoria fled, husband and children trailing behind. The crunch of her Tesla's tires over gravel was the last sound she left us. Watching her realize she'd been wrong all along, that was a moment I'll never forget. But the story didn't end there. If you've ever been underestimated only to prove your worth later, type karma in the comments. I'd love to hear your story of quiet success. And if this story resonated, share it, remind someone that success doesn't always wear a suit or sit in a corner office. Now let me tell you what happened 2 weeks later, when Victoria's carefully built world finally fell apart. After her exit, the barn was utterly silent. 200 guests waited, unsure what to do. This could have been my chance to gloat, to release 15 years of pent-up comebacks. But instead, I rose slowly and took the microphone Tyler handed me. I owe everyone an apology, I began steadily. Family drama doesn't belong at a wedding. Emma and Marcus deserve better. Mom, Emma started, but I smiled gently and continued. But since we're already being honest, let me say this, success isn't about money or zip codes. It's about peace, the kind that comes from knowing you've built something real. It's about employees who become family, customers who become friends, and work that nourishes people, body and soul. I looked toward the Forbes journalist. Ms. Walsh, if you're looking for a story, here it is, American agriculture isn't dying. It's evolving, thanks to people like my husband, who respect the land and lead with innovation. David stepped beside me, hand finding mine. We're not perfect, I said. We've made mistakes, taken risks that failed, survived lean years, but we've never had to pretend. We've never had to tear others down to stand tall. Mr. Harrison nodded approvingly. As for my MBA, I added with a smile, I use it every single day. I turned a third-generation farm into a multimillion-dollar sustainable enterprise. I built models that keep small farms alive against corporate giants. I've consulted across 3 states. That's not wasted potential, that's purpose. I turned toward Emma and Marcus. This is your moment, your new beginning. Don't ever let anyone, family or not, shrink your joy for choosing peace over pretense. Then I did something that even surprised me. Thompson Farms, I said, will also be donating $50,000 to the Oregon Agricultural Scholarship Fund. It's for students told that farming isn't a real profession. The applause roared through the barn, but I wasn't finished. And Victoria, I added, certain she was still within earshot, when you're ready to have a real, honest talk without the theatrics, you know where to find us. We'll be out in the fields, building something that actually matters. Through the barn doors, the parking lot was visible. Victoria's Tesla hadn't moved, it sat at the exit, hazard lights blinking. Robert appeared at the entrance, his face red with humiliation. He approached quietly, ignoring the hundreds of eyes watching. "Rachel, David," he began, voice strained, "I owe you both an apology. She's not well. The company's collapsing. She's been hiding it for months, even from me. The house is under foreclosure, the cars are leased and behind on payments. What you saw today, the gown, the arrogance, it was desperation wearing designer fabric." Hearing that didn't bring satisfaction, only sorrow. "She's been drinking more," Robert continued softly. "On medication for anxiety. The pressure to keep up the facade is destroying her. And when she found out how well you two have done, it broke something in her. To realize she's been mocking people who could buy and sell us 10 times over." David reached out, resting a steadying hand on his shoulder. "She's still family, Robert. Family she's treated like enemies," he said bitterly. "I've watched it for years and stayed silent. I'm part of the problem." But after seeing her tear into Emma like that, his voice cracked. "That's our niece. What kind of people have we become?" Marcus's father, the pediatric surgeon, joined quietly. "Robert, if she's truly struggling, I can connect you with someone. Burnout and image addiction are real psychological conditions." Robert nodded with relief. "She's in the car crying. She keeps saying she's ruined everything. Honestly, she has. Even our kids can't look at her right now." Through the window, we saw Victoria's teenage daughter making her way toward us. She looked just like Victoria had years ago, before ambition hardened her. "Aunt Rachel," she murmured, "I'm sorry about Mom. She's not always like this, or maybe she is, but it's worse since the company started failing. She's terrified of people finding out." I hugged her tightly. "Your mom is still my sister," I said gently. "She says things about you," the girl whispered, "but I know they're not true. I follow the farm's page. I've seen the awards, the articles. I even wrote a school paper about sustainable farming using your methods." Victoria's own daughter, secretly admiring the life her mother ridiculed. Robert gathered his children. "We're heading out. Emma, Marcus, I'm sorry. It's a beautiful wedding, don't let this ruin it." As they crossed the gravel, Victoria never left the car. Through the tinted glass, we saw her slumped over the steering wheel. Then the Tesla rolled away, carrying 15 years of superiority with it. 2 weeks later, while I was reviewing contracts in my office, my phone rang. Victoria's name appeared on the screen. I'd been expecting it. "Rachel," came her voice, thin, trembling. "Can we talk?" "I'm listening." A shaky breath. "Technova declared bankruptcy yesterday. The board fired me last week. They found out I'd inflated numbers to investors. I might face charges." I said nothing. "Robert's leaving. Says he can't watch me destroy myself anymore. The kids are staying with him. They won't even look at me." Her voice cracked. "I've lost everything, Rachel. Everything I claimed mattered. What do you need, Victoria?" She broke down, "I need $50,000 for legal fees, to keep me out of prison. I know I don't deserve it, not after what I've done to you, to David, to Emma. But you're my sister. I have nowhere else." 50,000. The same sum we donated. "I read the Forbes article," she added desperately. "About your success, the Ritz-Carlton deal. You can afford it. I'll pay you back, I swear. I'll work at the farm. I'll apologize publicly, anything." "Victoria," I said evenly, "when was the last time you visited Mom and Dad?" "What?" "Christmas, 2 years ago. Try 3. And when did you last call Emma?" "Not to criticize, just to talk?" Silence. "When's the last time you said something kind about our life?" "I was jealous," she burst out. "Is that what you wanted to hear?" I was jealous and mean and small. You had love. Purpose. Real joy. I had lies and debt and a marriage running on fumes. I lashed out because your happiness made my emptiness unbearable. It was the first truth she'd spoken in years. Please, Rachel, she sobbed. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm drowning. I thought of David's words, success doesn't need to shout. I thought of Emma's composure that night. And the scholarship fund helping kids like we once were. Victoria, I said finally, I'm not giving you money. Her cry was raw. But I will give you something better. I said I need cash, no. You need a restart. I exhaled slowly. I'll connect you with Sarah Chen, a financial counselor who handles bankruptcy recovery. We went to Northwestern together. She helps people rebuild, with dignity. And I'll give you the number of Dr. Morrison, the therapist who helped Emma when your words were hurting her. He's excellent. You don't understand, she pleaded. I need 50,000, not therapy. What you need is a life built on something real, I said quietly. Not another bailout that lets you skip accountability. If I gave you that money, you'd be back in this spot in 3 months. You're punishing me. I'm breaking the pattern. Tears filled her voice. But I could go to jail. Sarah will help you negotiate. Be honest, and you'll likely get probation, not prison. But you have to be truthful this time. No more pretending. You have millions and won't help your sister? I am helping you. Just not in the way you expect. I opened my laptop. Sarah's sliding scale should cover most fees. Same with Dr. Morrison. I'll cover both, it'll come to about 5,000 total. 5,000 in therapy instead of 50,000 to save me? Yes, I said. Because therapy might save you. Money won't. David walked in, listening silently, his expression calm but firm. There's one more condition, I added. You'll apologize to Emma, face to face. No texts, no cards. A real apology. She'll never forgive me. You might be surprised. Emma's grace runs deeper than both of us combined. But it's her decision, not yours. A long pause. Finally, she whispered, send me their contacts. Victoria, I said softly, when you're ready, truly ready, you're welcome at the farm. Not as a guest, but as family willing to get her hands dirty. She hung up without another word. But for the first time in years, I felt hope that we might someday be sisters again. 6 months passed. She took the help, real help. Sarah later told me Victoria was her toughest client, but also the most determined once she faced reality. Therapy with Dr. Morrison confirmed what we all suspected, her entire identity had been built on status and validation. When those vanished, she had nothing left. But slowly, she began to rebuild. She's working now, not as an executive, but as a consultant for small local businesses. Her first client? A family-run bakery in Portland. She called me afterward, crying. They were grateful, Rachel. Not impressed. Grateful. Emma met her last month. I didn't push it. Victoria had written a 3-page apology by hand, genuine, humble. Emma chose to meet for coffee. She asked about the farm, Emma told me later. Actually asked. Wanted to understand. Took notes. The boundaries I set weren't cruel, they were necessary. Love doesn't mean tolerating poison. Family doesn't mean excusing destruction. Sometimes compassion means refusing to feed someone's downfall. David and I have since expanded our scholarship program, 5 students a year now, all from families who told them their dreams weren't practical. Each one reminds me, success isn't measured by skyscrapers, but by roots that hold. Victoria hasn't visited yet. She's not ready. Neither are we. Trust takes time. But she sends Emma farming articles now, with comments like "This reminded me of you." Not, you should do this. Robert stayed. They're in therapy, selling the penthouse, downsizing. Their kids are forgiving slowly. The wedding video went viral. Hundreds of messages poured in from people who'd faced the same kind of family judgment. It started a real conversation about humility, success, and the courage to live authentically. And the biggest lesson? Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, without apology. That's where we are now. Victoria's learning that respect can't be bought. She texts occasionally, small wins, client news, progress in therapy. Last week, she sent a photo from a farmer's market. Bought organic tomatoes, she wrote. Thought of you. It wasn't grand, but it was genuine. The farm's thriving. We're expanding to serve Ritz-Carlton nationwide. Emma's designing a youth agriculture program. David still comes home with soil under his nails. And I wouldn't change a thing. True success isn't proving someone wrong, it's proving yourself right. It's building something that matters, even if others can't see its worth. It's choosing authenticity over appearance, again and again. Sometimes, the universe hands you a moment so clear that truth simply refuses to stay quiet. That night at Emma's wedding wasn't revenge, it was revelation. And maybe, just maybe, it saved my sister's life. Thank you for listening to this story. If you've ever had to draw boundaries with toxic family, tell me how you did it. Was I too harsh with Victoria, or not enough? Leave your thoughts below. And if this story spoke to you, share it with someone who needs the reminder, your worth isn't defined by anyone's narrow version of success. What does real success mean to you? I'd love to know. Until next time, remember, your value never fades just because someone else can't see it.